together, and so that when they're writing code or trying to write a tool for Vivo and they're not very familiar with the data structures, they could look at a picture to help them, to see how a person relates to their courses or how a person relates to their publications. And then, our folks out at UCSF brought this up to my attention about 6 months ago during a CTSA Connect call, that one of the things that they found was really hard when approaching Vivo were the fact that there were not very many sample code sets in other languages other than Java. So one of the goals that I have for the group is that we'll start putting more code up in more public places that are in languages other than Java, so tools that are built. And we've actually started doing a pretty good job of that. There's actually starting to sprout up 4, 5, or 6 different GitHub repositories that have samples. And I have some of them that I can show. Platforms, interoperability with other platforms. I'm trying to do a better job of and thank you, John. I saw that you had helped add some things to the wiki. I'm trying to do a better job of looking and putting in some of the examples where people have integrated Vivo with platforms other than Vivo itself. So I know that there are some Drupal integrations. We do it here. We also do WordPress integrations here. I know that at OHSU they've integrated or pulling Vivo data into Drupal. I know Eric Meeks out at UCSF has open social containers. I don't know who's doing Joomla. I think that might be Indiana. And then we talked about who we're building the apps for. And so that's probably a good thing too, to help define or get clarity around who these applications that we're trying to build are for. So I think that's about it for the goals, the main goals. I mean, so some of the ideas that we had on, how to put these forward, perhaps a meetup, a hackathon. I know Yin, I got some feedback from the last call that I didn't get a chance to go to, that you thought that we might do a Vivo Vagrant hackathon, which I think is a great idea. And then probably in 2014 Vivo, I definitely want to make sure that there are more specific apps and tools presentations at the conference. So try to work towards that goal. So that's pretty much the goals of the working group. Some quick updates on the wiki. We have started assembling a catalog of tools and maintainers. And I was very happy to add the recent work of Ted at Brown, who has created a virtual machine for being able to easily set up and deploy a Vivo for people that want to do testing. And so over here, I don't know if you guys, let me drag it over here to the left. Can you guys all see my command line window? Well, speak up if you can.
Yeah.
So basically, it wasn't very hard. I did this morning in preparation for the call. So I was able to clone Ted's repo up at GitHub, and after that finished cloning, I was able to issue a Vagrant up command. Now I do have Vagrant installed. We do use Vagrant. I may be speaking to the choir here. You guys all know how it works, but I just wanted to show you that within a few minutes, all this stuff that I'm scrolling by here is an automated install of not only Vivo, but all the things Vivo needs. And the only command I had to issue to do that was the one I have highlighted here, Vagrant up. I didn't do anything else. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. This took a little bit because it was the first time I did it. I think it took about 10 minutes. You can see here it's installing Apache. And this is all Ted's work, by the way, and I know Ted's on the call, so Ted, chime in here if I say anything that you disagree with. The point of me showing this real quick as I scroll through all this is that this is all, I did all this with one command. And then I'm going to go ahead and connect to the machine. For any of you guys who haven't seen this. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm already connected to the machine. Let me show you how easy that is. So there's a built-in command called Vagrant SSH. It basically has already set up and configured SSH keys between the virtual host and my machine. So I don't have to configure anything or any user accounts to be able to connect. I did connect to the machine earlier, install a command line browser called Lynx. And there it is. Doesn't look fancy, but it's a VIVO. So right before the rest of you guys connected to the call, I was talking with Ted for just a second, and the next step for me, I had started building one of these, and so had Steven out at Colorado, and Ted kind of beat us to the punch, which is fantastic. I'm very excited. And what I told Ted was that I'm going to start cloning off of his now instead of finishing mine, because the next thing that I had wanted to do after I had gotten to this point where Ted is I want to be able to create a data set to load into VIVO programmatically. So as part of this install process, it builds the VIVO and then loads in a data set. So probably within the next month or so, I think I'm going to be that close. So basically, I'm going to extract a subset of faculty members and staff out of our UF Vivo and get their publications and grants and courses that they've taught and make a small little data set and then load it into this Vivo. And maybe I can sweet talk Ted into including it into his build script after I get working.
Yeah, definitely.
So I
So
think a good way to do that might be to do you want to use the issue system, on GitHub and sort of, kind of set up some milestones and things that you want to accomplish um, along those lines?
sure, are you thinking that if I
I
put
mean,
put this out there, I can
yeah.
get some help?
Well, no, I mean just treating this as like sort of a project, and certainly GitHub has its issue, has a little issue tracker thing. So, and I think wait, is it issues or I can't remember. I thought
Yeah, no,
it had like
we use it.
yeah,
We use it here in Florida. We use the GitHub one for data quality issues. So yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
just to treat it as
I'd be happy to.
and to just put in the new issue and sort of describe what it is and all that kind of stuff. And granted, at the end of the day, it might be that you'll be the sort of the champion for that one issue, which means that you might be working on it solely, but it gives other people the opportunity to sort of follow along and realize that there's things going on with this with Ted's build.
Okay, I'm taking notes on that.
Because like the first thing that I would add an issue for would be whether to offload some of the Ubuntu specific stuff to like use Chef or Puppet to provision.
Okay,
And oh wait, what?
I'm sorry, Ian. Go ahead. I closed.
Oh, nothing. I was just I thought there was a directory that I missed. Um, right. And then I don't know how they do. Do you know how they do unit? Do they do unit testing at all with Vagrant scripts? I think they just do it and run it, and if it works, it works.
Yeah, I think I don't I haven't seen any more complicated, setups, so I'm not quite sure how that works either. I
Yeah,
went with the shell script just because I wanted to get something working pretty quickly and I wasn't familiar with Chef or Puppet.
yeah. I mean, I think it's totally the way to go because once you have your working VM, then you could just modify something if it breaks. It breaks,
Hmm.
and so you didn't do it right. But I didn't know if there was an automated way that people have that maybe kicks in the shell script afterwards and says, "Oh, you can like the server's up. The right page comes back, and then it does a couple of things through like links or whatever, interacting with the Vivo install, and that's how you know that the database, was imported correctly. So, you run a search through a URL or
Oh,
something like that.
I see what you're asking. We do that here, but not with Vivo. So I don't know. You're probably familiar with RedCap
Yeah.
from your CTSA work. So we have a lot of RedCap vagrants we have for different projects, so we can stand up test RedCaps, and we um, we use a combination of both Chef and the Bootstrap.sh, which is the shell script container, and we do exactly what you're talking about. So when we load some of the test data into the test databases, we'll issue MySQL queries, and
Right.
then and if they fail, we log messages essentially saying, "Hey,
Right.
something happened." and
Right.
and actually, Ted was doing a pretty good job. If you noticed, I'll scroll back up here. I'm pretty sure that was Ted who was echoing out these messages. I saw a couple. Yeah, right here. So
Oh,
it would
got it.
be pretty trivial in bootstrap.sh to put in some tests.
Yeah.
Chef
Right.
Chef also has a testing framework if you wanted to get um, more down and dirty and really
Right.
do it.
Right.
I mean, the main
So,
thing for me about why it's exciting is that it's really hard to for a newcomer, and I still think it is, to stand up a Vivo.
right.
They get stuck in places, and so it just kind of, instead of like they've got an idea about something they want to do, and or they take some of our sample JavaScript code and they want to do something with it. It's, what Ted has done is pretty significant, because then they can go clone his repo and stand up a Vivo without having to know much about how to do it.
Right.
Then they
Right.
can start reading the documents about how to log in through the web interface and run queries, and they're kind of off to the races.
Right.
So, and that's not a disparagement against you, Jim. Your documentation is fantastic, but I mean, there are some people that just they get stuck and they can't work their way around their own issues with Tomcat or their config for Apache, or
No, I totally recognize that, Chris. I think this is excellent stuff. What I would love to see at some point is a much easier installation of a naked Vivo that would not require MySQL, and that could go up in JBoss, which is a simple executable with no installation required, instead of Tomcat. Working towards these same goals. But on the other hand, I'm not making that happen, and you guys are. So, that's great.
Did you say without MySQL?
That's right. That's right. One thing we've looked at is, the possibility of going with just an in-memory or all Java database. But at this point, that may be overtaken by the idea of doing all of the data from TDB based version of Jenna, which is file based rather than backed by a relational database. And so Brian says that should be, if we can do that, that would be zero install.
That would be exciting. Yeah, because we would love that too. That would make it, a lot nicer Git repo wise. Not that it's a challenge to use MySQL, but that would definitely be easier and more straightforward. And I think for a smaller Vivo, or a right-sized Vivo, I think that would be fantastic. Especially, we've been thinking about it here, about building one and seeing if we can do something with, how it used to be back in the day, where you could load it with all in memory. So that's
Yeah,
exciting.
one of our goals for the next release, and I'm sorry to say, not this one, is to make sure that we have interchangeable data sources. Right now, we do we allow you to, for example, take your content model off of any Sparkle endpoint that has update enabled, but the private data, the user accounts model and display model, that sort of thing, are still tied to Jenna RDB, and so we'd like to set that up to be configurable also. And once we've done that, then the question of doing a TDB-based RDF service should be straightforward, or at least so Brian tells me. He's certainly much more knowledgeable than I am. So this is in line with the direction we're wanting to go as far as cleaning up the model access itself, internal to VIVO, and so these hopefully these good results will fall out as a sort of a side effect. But again, you guys are attacking this head on, and I think that's a great thing. I agree totally with what you're saying, that a person wants to be able to just set it up and see how it runs, and the impression that they get, the experience that they have doing that, can really color their whole view of the application.
No, and thank you for that. One of the things that I'm glad this came up, one of the things that we're trying to figure out how to do down here is figuring out a way to clone our VIVO data faster so that we can iterate over it offline. And what I mean by that is we have a requirement where we would want to do data checks on VIVO data, like look for orphaned entities, or look for things that the inferencer didn't like. So we had an example recently where we put some data in programmatically and we forgot to assert that it was a thing. And from what we can see in the inferencer code, if you don't assert that any entity is a thing, the inferencer can't see it and can't put in all of its assertions that So basically, we had people and orgs going in that weren't FOF person or weren't FOF org. And we thought that the inferencer would just tag them with that, but it didn't, because we didn't say they were a thing. So the inferencer first checks to see if it's a thing, and if it doesn't find it, it skips over it. So long story short, we wanted to be able to iterate over our whole data set and look for any of the objects that might not be a thing. And we wanted to do it on a regular basis. And we realized, wow, even if we use the Sparkle endpoint, that may be a problem. So one of the things that we're testing right now is we've got an N3 file of all of our triples, and we're using that. But it takes like 5 hours to generate that N3 file. So my point is that if you had a file-based or memory-based system, it would probably be, hopefully, I'm assuming, easy as copying the file store to be able to get a clone of that data. So that's another reason, I think, to do that, because it would be helpful if you wanted to do analysis or programming against your data store without affecting your production.
Yeah.
So that was a long-winded way of saying I'm in full support of that. And I think there's lots of use cases you're going to find out why that's a good idea. So, well, that was my vagrant demo, and I promise, guys, I'm going to try and do a better job of getting some demos. John has connected me up with a gentleman out at the air. John, where is it? The Air and Space? I always blank on this. In Colorado?
It's Atmospheric and Space Science, Lab for Atmospheric and Space Science at Colorado Boulder.
Colorado Boulder. So I've been corresponding with him thanks to John, and he's done some pretty neat stuff. He's using a VIVO to essentially manage from what I gather, he's using it to manage the information about all of the servers that he uses to collect data from things out in space. And he's also written, I don't know if you guys are familiar with AngularJS, but AngularJS is bring it up on my screen here real quick. It's a model view controller framework written by Google and some other people, all in JavaScript. And basically, it lets you stand up applications pretty quickly, and the applications are usually compatible with phones, tablets, and computers because of the way they use Twitter Bootstrap. So the point is, this gentleman out in Colorado is using a VIVO, and he's built an Angular application so that he can use his VIVO data in different ways to monitor all the things that he wants to monitor. So I'm trying to get him to come on and give a demonstration of that and give us kind of a tour, because I think that's kind of the next step. We're building some AngularJS applications here. I know John has told me that you guys up at Cornell are looking at Angular. It's a pretty lightweight framework, and I think it's gaining some pretty good popularity because of its ability to do mobile as well as just standard web-based interfaces. So that's kind of on the horizon too. I wanted to give you guys that heads up there. Let's see what else. Went over the list of curating. Oh, so I haven't made any yet, but one of the things that we're working on. I'm sorry, I made one. We're working on creating some Sparkle example templates. We talked about this at the beginning, and I'm going to work on a couple more of those. Nicholas and I have actually been working on one for courses and one for people, and so hopefully also sometime here in November coming up, we'll unveil 4 or 5 of those. So basically, it's going to be a wiki page, and it'll have a good ontology diagram, and then some Sparkle code that will use those, and then we're going to write some JavaScript code examples. So basically, you'll have the whole package. You'll have a diagram, a Sparkle query, and then some code on how to run it. And we think that that's a kind of a good step forward to helping people find an entry point into building an app against VIVO. So you guys that are on the call are all already experienced in doing a lot of this. It's just a kind of a way to put a little bit of a formality on it so we can get it in the wiki and have people be able to find it.
That sounds great, Chris.
Brian, you might look, Brian Lowe has made some new diagrams for the ISF, VIVO ISF ontology that are, that they're, I'll just send you the link, but they're on the ontology section of the wiki, so they might be useful.
Yeah, that would definitely help. Okay. And then thanks also to John, who had sent out this information about this call to the international group. Apparently, they're also having a VIVO camp, which I thought was pretty cool. And I guess there's a I don't remember what SWIB13 stands for. We'll look at it here together.
Semantic Web and Libraries.
Semantic Web and Libraries. Okay. So I guess there's a Semantic Web and Libraries conference in Hamburg, Germany in November. And they're also going to have essentially a VIVO camp, which I thought is pretty cool. And I guess it's going to be built around helping people understand VIVO and what ontologies they're using and how they align with serif format, which is important in Europe because that's the format that they've been using to catalog their research data, right, John? Or describe it?
Yeah, it's sort of the officially endorsed format of the European Union, and there's a number of there's a number of vendors producing systems. They're more research administration systems, so I think some of the interest is in being able to take that data and stand up a VIVO to display it, as well as to connect different systems, because there's several different vendors that aren't directly interoperable.
So here's one of the things that I found very exciting when I went to this link is that people are already signing up for topics to talk about. And I'm sure John knows, and the only name I recognized here was John Ferreira. So I thought that was pretty exciting. I was kind of hoping somebody was going to call in today from there, but I guess they're still shy. So anyway, I think that, I don't know if anybody in this call is going to Hamburg. I doubt it, but I just think it was pretty neat to see that there's other people out there on, the other side of the pond looking at VIVO. What else were we going to talk about? I think that's about it for my agenda. Unless anybody else has any suggestions, I would appreciate anybody that Ted. I know that you had some other stuff that you've done with Python that we had talked about before, and I didn't know if you had any. You don't have to show them today because I know you're not prepared, but I don't know if you have anything in the future that you'd like to show the group, because I know people are dying to see some code examples and some stuff working.
I do have, lots of examples, and let me think about that and get back to you. What might be a good demo.
Okay. And Yin, so how are things going at NYU? I know that you have been writing some some stuff there that are add-ons to Vivo to make it work better for you, right?
Yeah. Well, I wish I'd been working on it a little bit more. I've been really busy teaching and doing some other things lately. My biggest thing right now is just, you know, now that this Vagrant is working, you know, trying to use the Vagrant and bringing some machines up and then, you know, putting our data in it directly from our enterprise data warehouse and sort of what that looks like. And I was sort of waiting for, you know, kind of trying to get the Vagrant to work because I found myself spending a lot of time just like configuring and, you know, getting machines up and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, there must be a better way. And so there was a better way. Um, what do you think about um, you know, is there a way to organize sort of all this code that you know people might have? And do you think, or do we do it through here, like through this GitHub site, you know, through the quality improvement, you know, that you were just bringing up here? And you know, what do you think is a good way to, rather than passing code around, you know, by email or whatnot, to have a central place to just, you know, if you're working on some script, it doesn't seem that important, but you just drop it in someplace anyways. Um, and what are your thoughts on sort of mediating that process?
What I've been encouraging people to do is, you know, for code to be, and this is all my opinion, but for code to be useful long term, it has to have a maintainer. So
Right.
my idea around that was creating this catalog of tools and maintainers because, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
and what I would hope is that you know, this is Ted's GitHub site and I have my GitHub site and I put in my code examples and I'll show you mine here. Let me open up a new tab. So here's my Vivo Sparkle examples, right? And so this was just, you know, a README and some code, and I'm going to build out the wiki here with those diagrams and things I was talking about. But this is something I put it on mine so that I can maintain it. So that if you have something that you want to share, I'm hoping that you're putting it up on your GitHub site because it's trivial for people to clone it. You know, they know how to use
Okay.
it, they know how to do it, but I still think that you should retain, you know, ownership of it because you're going to have to keep it updated. So when you get feedback, so you were talking about it, for example. So if somebody, you know, sends me an issue or a pull request, you know, that'll come to me, who's the guy who was maintaining the code.
Right. Right.
Um,
All right. Great. I like that.
One of the things I was pulling that up here to show you was this is the we are using GitHub here at UF mainly for the issue tracker. So we're storing all of our data issues here.
Right.
So things about duplicate orgs, you know, update the profile of Frank Howard. So we actually have a team of people that are in different locations collaborating together using this to fix it. And then we have librarians that as they find issues or if we find issues, they're adding them to the system. Or if they email them to us, we add them to the system.
Got it.
But the other thing I wanted to show you here, Yin, since you were talking about adding data, um, this is essentially some Python examples in code for how we create, add, and subtract RDF that we load
Yeah.
to the Vivo interface. And I've loaded a 5 gig file through the interface, so it's not it'll do it.
Awesome.
So a 5 gig
Yeah,
add.
that's really helpful.
So there's just some, you know, there's just some Python stuff here. It's probably, you know, we point stuff at our Sparkle endpoint. Here's an example of some things where we go through, you know, like people are asked instead of teaching assistants, and people are ASOCs instead of associates. So there's just some examples of that. And then you can just go through here and look, and there's some examples of just some things we do. And then there's these are all tool functions. So
So,
I don't know if
what?
it'll be helpful to you or not, but and then I've got some other code that I don't know if I put it up here or not. There's some things in here about how to create Vivo compatible RDF for publications from a BibTeX file. So
Got it. So is this on the catalog of tools and maintainers, the UF Vivo Tech?
I believe it is, but I'll check. Let me look here. Oh, you know what? It's not. I will add it.
Ah, got it.
Go back here, but I'll copy this and paste the link in the chat, and I'll also put it in the meeting notes.
So when you use the GitHub repository, the GitHub issue tracker, is it public?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so your other people can just log in and add an issue. They don't necessarily have to have an account and be subscribed to your repository and all that stuff.
Yes, they can add issues without being. I'm almost positive they can add issues without being part of the project. They just can't do anything
Right.
other than that.
Right.
So again, yeah, I mean that's another thing that I guess I should probably state somewhere here in the notes and keep saying over and over again. We're encouraging people to use GitHub and put up their tools and their code examples as GitHub repos because I think that's the best way currently to share these tools. But we definitely do not. I don't want to take them from people. I don't want to put them up in a wiki. I don't want to package them in zip files because I think that that disconnects them from their maintainer, which means that eventually they'll become out of date, and that's not helpful. Plus, I think all the people that are building these apps and tools need to get credit. I mean, Ted did an amazing thing finishing the vagrant work that Stephen and I had started, and and if you and frankly, if you go to I hope Ted's not blushing over the phone, but if you go here and you actually read through there, you'll see that he's also done some pretty interesting work that you could follow on setting up a 3-tier build for his Vivo. So he's got his template stuff here in his GitHub repo that shows how to do some templating in Vivo. So, and I'm sure that Ted is probably like the rest of us. He did this because it's easier for him to get his work done at work, right, Ted?
That's right.
So, but by putting it up here in GitHub, he's at least made it so that other people can do this. So as he updates this 3-tier build, while he's maintaining Brown's Vivo and other things, it's beneficial to everybody else that gets to watch and say, "Oh, I was thinking about how to do that. I didn't know how to start. Look, Ted gave me a start on how to do that." So I can't say enough good things about that. Any feedback from any? I mean, I've got a pretty distinguished group here. So on the next call, what do you think you guys would like to see? Is the format here working out? Are you guys, or is there something else you think I could add? Help me make it better.
Yeah, I like the format.
I guess the
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, I will. I think the format is fine. I really appreciate what you're discussing. I think at some point we have to decide whether the international aspect is going to work out, or if what we need to do to make it happen. I know it's inconvenient for the East Coast folks to attend at this time, but for Colorado it would be much more challenging. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that. I mean, I'm missing my West Coast buddies right now, but I didn't expect them to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to be on the call. So I agree. I was gonna discuss that offline with John and see what he thought.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got my message out only yesterday afternoon. So I think we might switch to doing it at a standard time that works better in the U.S. because we're getting attendance from the U.S. and then see if we get any feedback from people, or maybe I can ask John Ferreira at this Vivo camp in Germany whether there are people that would actually participate. But we've tried it well, the first time we didn't really publicize it except through the dev-all list, and this time I did one additional mailing, but only yesterday. But I thought we might get one or two, but so I think it probably be better. It's better to build our audience where we have an audience.
Yeah.
And do it at a standard time. So I don't know whether that's 11 or 1. 11 is still pretty early in California. But
I think 11 might be more doable.
yeah, at least that's only 5 or 6 in, or actually 4 or 5 o'clock in Europe. So it theoretically would be doable. So and there are people who come to the ontology calls on the West Coast when it's 8 o'clock their time. So.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday in, I don't remember, I think it was somewhere in the email you sent. I was like, wow, 11 a.m. sounds like almost the perfect time because it's, it's the end of the day in Europe, but it's the start of the day on the West Coast. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm the timing thing has been good, but I really, you guys don't realize how much I appreciate you guys coming to the call this morning. The first international call we had, it was for the first 30 minutes. It was me and Nick Rejak in the same office. And then John came on and we did our show for him. It still worked out well. We recorded a video of how the D checker works. So Yin, you might be interested in that too. That's actually on the call notes for the call number 3.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
There's actually it's also on the main page. I'm sorry. There's on the main page. There's a there we go, YouTube video. So
this is some simple.
Oh, there we go. So, and that's another thing that I've been doing, by the way. We had a snafu with the last one. I was in Portland, and Stephen Williams from Colorado and Philip Chase here from Florida were trying to record the call. And we discovered something about GoToMeeting is that if you call in with the telephone and you hit record, it doesn't record the audio. So you got to have your mic and speakers on connected that way when you're recording. So we had a video.
So what do you?
Go ahead.
What would you think about, along these lines of, sort of doing demos of, adding another wiki page that's sort of, a demo, and then, having 15 minutes on each call where, we just show one piece of code, for example, like you're doing here, and sort of formalizing that. And so, like this session would be, getting the Vagrant up and running. And then, there's a D checker. And sort of that way, you don't have to run the whole thing, and whoever's the maintainer of that code for that day can just sort of say, can sort of present some of the code that they've, either been working on or doing, and sort of show it in action, in real time. And what are your thoughts about doing that?
Well, that's kind of what the format of the first 3 calls were.
Okay.
I didn't have a good example for today. We're kind of running out of examples here at Florida because we've shown all of our examples. So I was stealing Ted's vagrant work. If you watch this video, you'll see that Nicholas not only goes through running it and showing it to you, but he walks you through the code and shows you what the code's doing.
Okay, awesome. I'll take a look at those early ones.
And so yeah, no, that's kind of the goal of what I'm hoping to do with these calls is not to do the kind of the same thing or rehash the developer call. I wanted to get in depth with some code examples so that when people come to the call, the people that are presenting are going to actually walk through and show you why they made some decisions with the code the way they did and what they're doing. And Nicholas did a good job of that with this video, you'll see. So I'm working on it, guys. If you just be patient with me, I'm glad you keep attending. I'm going to really line up some good presenters, and we're going to go a little bit more in depth with the code and how it works, because I think that the people that want to attend these calls, they kind of want to get a little more into the nitty gritty than kind of some overview issues. And I don't want to tread on the territory of the other call. I want it to be something a little bit different. So I'm working on it. I apologize for not having a better example today.
What about also sort of doing an initial design as well? For people that are saying, oh, I would like to build X, Y, and Z, and then having a call where people can give feedback about how to design that and how to connect it to the right components within Vivo. So like for things that aren't built yet.
I don't know if I understand the so helping people design things on the call. So if they have an idea, help them come up with some ideas on how to build it.
Well, yeah, because sometimes I'll be like, oh, I want to do this, and then I spend a lot of time trying to, go through the code and find the right places, to connect, what I'm visualizing to what actually exists. Um, and
No,
so,
that's a great idea. So kind of like we have those things here at our CTSA. Actually, they call them design studios. We have to sit there and people bring their ideas and ask us how they should do it. So they trap us. The only thing that's good about it is they feed us lunch. So basically, they bring in a bunch of experts, biostatisticians, informaticians, and other people, and then they have people that are thinking about doing some kind of research. And we're kind of like a captive panel, and they're like, "This is what we want to do, and what do you think some of the issues are, and how do we do it?" So I think that's a good idea.
yeah, so yeah, something along those lines. And of course, it doesn't have to be, so formal. I mean, I think it can just be a 10 minutes of, hey, everyone, I'm trying to do this. If you were to do this, how would you go about doing it? And someone say, well, you need a file-based database, or you need a memory base, or their preferred, whatever.
No, I agree. I mean, that's. I guess I could have come if I'd have thought of that. That's a great idea, Ian. Because if I'd have thought of that, I would have asked this group, "What do you think about my problem about having to create a clone of the Vivo data, fat like fast like every hour?"
Yeah. Um, Well, actually, when you were talking about that, I was thinking about way because you're doing it for quality control, right, on the back end.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think of like ways that you could utilize the Solar Indexer to help you quickly identify quality control issues. Um, because if things are indexed correctly, there should be nothing that exists in the database that doesn't exist in the indexer, and then you could just quickly look up stuff because everything's indexed already. So um, but I need to know, more specifically if I can think about the problems you're trying to identify. I think to
Well,
know
that was
whether.
the exact problem we had. We had something in the data that wasn't in the index.
Oh yeah. I wonder why that happened.
We narrowed it down to we put in some data that we didn't assert was a thing.
Oh.
Don't do that. For
Yeah.
warning for everybody on the call. Don't do that.
They're don't not have things.
That's right. Don't not say it's a thing. No, that's a great idea, and I think I'm going to think about that some more and figure out how to make that part of the regular agenda. I like that because I think that people may have ideas, and I can even solicit ideas before the call, and then maybe one of the things we could do as part of the call is to sit there and say, hey, someone's asking how to solve this type of problem. How would you guys approach it? And then we can have a little write up on or a paragraph on people's ideas because that's another thing too. I think that people might be hesitant to bring their ideas forward for being in fear of getting a read define manual kind of responses, which we don't want to do. So, what about you, Ted? What do you think I can do to improve the call?
Well, I like this idea that Ian just proposed, and I like the demos too. But then, I haven't volunteered to do one yet. But yeah, more demos like uh, what you recorded, what Nick did, things like that. I agree that I'm interested in this group just to see what other people want to do and then maybe adapt some of their ideas here. So um, yeah, more hands-on things.
Okay. I'm adding that to the notes. Yeah, and again, I'm gonna try and get some more people to do some, because there's just some amazing stuff out there that I've seen. I know there's stuff that John has seen, and we just got to try and get people to show it to us. Like the widgets that they did at Duke, and some of the things they're doing at Duke are pretty interesting. I think people would like that. So I'm trying to get those guys too.
Richard from
Yeah,
Richard from Duke had a link that he put into, I think, one of the earlier calls, but it was an Angular JS front end to Vivo that was pretty well done. So it'd be nice to have him, if he's available, to show us or talk us through that.
okay. I will ping him again.
Yeah,
Hey, Chris, if I can just throw in here, one of the reasons that I'm on this call is to help set my direction. I think you've already mentioned this or mentioned it in the write-up, but you know, if people say, "Oh, I could do this great thing with Vivo if only Vivo did thus and such," that would certainly affect my priorities in as much as I get to set my own priorities.
Well, I can tell you that it's probably an unsaid thing because I've said it a lot, but I don't, and you can get some feedback from the other people here. But we are all very excited about the API, the ability to get data from Vivo that's coming out and put data back into Vivo. I mean, that's going to be another big thing that's going to open up the ability to write apps for it. So how is that coming?
We're, it's in this release. It's being tested. We're still, it's a write-only API, so that we're still, I think, relying on, Sparkle endpoints and linked open data queries for the reading the data from Vivo. I mean, we do want to promote linked open data, but there's no write standard at this point for linked open data. So the writable API is in this release, and if people wanted to kick the tires on that, I don't suppose it's too late to get in changes if we see obvious deficiencies. I mean, obviously we like to do bugs only at this point, but if you look at it and say, this thing is useless without XYZ, we certainly would want to hear that now.
Ted, haven't you tried it out?
Yes, I tried it. It's been a little while now, and it seemed to support the full Sparkle update standard. So that, to me, was very exciting because there's documentation on the web for it already. So I was able to connect to it and do some Sparkle updates.
Yeah, that was Brian Caruso that made that happen. I had put together. That had been on my plate for a while, and I put together a draft of what the API would look like, and Brian came in and said, well, this is ridiculous. We already have a Sparkle standard. We already have documentation. People have tools that can use it, and so again, that's my take on something where the feedback is really important. And no, I don't take offense at the idea that other people might have ideas that I didn't have.
So what are you thinking about at some point in the future being able to issue Sparkle read queries via the API, or you think that's something that's left to an endpoint?
I think that's going to be based on the feedback we get. If you guys turn around and say, well, linked open data is too clumsy and we'd much rather have this Sparkle read, both these cases, there's a question of load, but another nice thing that happens with this API is that it is authenticated, and so you can limit who can get to this. One of the things that we had talked about as a possibility was to set up an additional role in Vivo rather than just saying, okay, only admins can get to API, but to be able to say, well, here's a role of API users, and any individual could be set up with authentication just for using that. So again, basically, excuse me, go ahead.
I was just going to say that there, I forget it's Patrick from RPI who wanted to be able to connect to the VIVO's own internal Sparkle endpoint from another application. So Brian Caruso added that as well. So and that will now also respect content negotiation. So I think there actually will be a read API with this release. Am I misunderstanding that, Jim?
That not out of the box. As it stands right now, as I say, out of the box, you need to be an admin in order to hit that page, and I don't know if he added one-step authentication to that as well. In the past, what we've been doing is driving it with you need to have some client that can do the login and record the cookie and then come back with the request, so that VIVO recognizes your authority. And what Patrick wanted to do was to make it public, and so then login wasn't an issue.
Right.
So I think out of the box that still needs a little bit of doctoring to be usable as a general purpose endpoint.
So have you guys, does the API use API keys, or do you have to authenticate with whatever auth system and have a cookie and then be able to issue queries?
No, you submit your username and password as fields in the request, and it uses VIVO's internal authentication system. So yeah, you do need to have a VIVO account, not like a Shibboleth account.
Okay.
Obviously, we can't do a one-step thing there, because those are just don't work that way.
So we use so one of the things down here, we have RedCap, which you may or may not have heard of. It's just another PHP based data collection thing, but they have a read-write API, and they basically have API keys that are issued to users for a specific data set they're working on. But basically, it's a big, long, ugly, nasty looking numbers, letters, things. But you send the key along with your request, and that's your authentication mechanism. So it's just something to. I've seen some other systems that use API keys that you send along with your encrypted request to get access to do things, read and write data.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I'll have a look at it. In effect, again, if you set up an account for just this purpose, an VIVO internal account, then the username and password on that are essentially keys that you would submit with your request.
Oh, I get it. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that before. So it's a VIVO. It's a VIVO internal account.
Yeah. So then the question of security comes up, because your username and password are sent in clear as part of the request. So then it's just a question of are you enforcing HTTPS on that location? Right. And if so, then again, using the existing encryption schemes rather than trying to cook our own.
Does it accept posts or gets, or both, or does it care?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm going to say it only accepts post, but it's really worth double checking.
Well, that's the thing with RedCap, right? So you can't pass your API key because it won't accept gets. So you can't put it in the query string. So you got to pass it as a post. So yeah, if you're using HTTPS correctly and you're passing it with a post, and so I think that's user and pass works fine. It's kind of the same idea.
Yeah, it's just that we had the authentication internal authentication scheme already there, and accounts management tools already there. So we said, well, why not use that?
I got to sign off, folks. Thanks for running the call, Chris.
No problem. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for sticking around for an extra few minutes. The next call will be on the 4th of November. Let me make sure I got that. I'm sorry, the 5th of November, 2 weeks from now. So, and it'll be in the afternoon, and then probably we'll look at changing the time to 11 for the next international call in a month. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for attending, and I'll send out the meeting notes and the follow-up.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
All right, bye-bye.